My next three guests come from different fields, and yet all three of them are dealing with related topics. They have all contributed so much to the Israeli innovation and startup nation, and they are three of the most important leaders of the Israel high-tech industry. I'm glad to invite to stage Dr. Aya Soffer. She is the VP of Artificial Intelligence Technology at IBM, which makes her one of the most important figures in the world of artificial intelligence. Alan? Dr. Orna Berry, whom you all know, entrepreneur, scientist, policymaker, and industry executive for over 30 years here in Israel, Israeli science, technology, and venture capital industries. Orna was also chief scientist, the precursor of today's innovation authority. And we have with us Kira Radinsky, Dr. Kira Radinsky, who is the chief scientist director of data science at eBay. And I am so thrilled to have a panel of three great, strong, innovative women. So thank you for this opportunity. So we're trying to talk about a topic which is, on the one hand, the future, the tomorrow, and on the other hand, it's like, as Mr. Moss said, it's those cars driving when we are still all on horses. So I want to start with you, Aya, because you are indeed, I think, one of the leading figures in the world in AI. Where are we in this revolution?
So actually, Amnon, I think, said it really well before. We are at a point that if you give AI a very clear task, well-defined, good data, you know what the outcome should be, skilled people will be able to solve that problem. So we can build it. However, it's built for purpose. It's built to do that. And if you want something, and this AI that we talk about, general intelligence, whose main characteristic is to learn more like humans, we are very, very far from that. So all of us see our kids, right? How they learn. You show them one example, they generalize. You can tell them, here's a new card game, read them the instructions, and they play. Computers, we don't program them that way. We have not yet figured out how to really teach computers to learn more like humans. And that's, I think, our biggest gap yet, to really get to that ultimate. But,
so actually you're saying we were just at the beginning.
Totally.
I'm sure we want to know about, where it will take us and what are the challenges there. But I want to ask Dr. Berry before. This demands a lot of money. AI, quantum science, they need billions and billions of dollars. We've just heard of MIT's new $1 billion artificial intelligence initiative. Now, how can Israel compete when we're talking with these big numbers?
First of all, Israel needs to invest like any other country. Of course, the way you build up a new area, and as Aya said, and as Amnon said, it's in its inception. So you need to invest in the infrastructure that allows you to build. Now, of course, you build from the places where people have strengths already in order to create advantage real fast and start progressing. But this means that we need to go into the infrastructure. We need to build the kind of computing power and the kind of computing that allows us to build on top of it. And that's partially the role of what the government has done since '69, when it's first established its science and technology research and development programs. And we'll do in the future. There are initiatives right now, and I'm involved in a couple in quantum computing. Actually, it's broader than computing. It's quantum information and in artificial intelligence infrastructure.
And do you think that Israel has an edge there?
Israel, even if it doesn't have an edge, Sometimes it adopts a certain direction. The rate, because of its size, the rate at which it reaches achievements is rather fast. And we're hungry, so being remote and having lots of demands from different sorts for our own consumption makes us hungry, and that's very good when you're chasing science.
That's true. Dr. Radinsky, I know that at eBay you use EI to predict the future trends to make us shop better, but your personal interests have always been in a different field when it comes to these topics.
So I want to share with you a little bit about my views in healthcare specifically. So specifically in Israel, we all believe in tikkun olam. How can we fix the world? I think one of the largest problems that we have today is the fact that there are billions of people, and we're growing. There is going to be $3.8 billion the next people in the next 10 years. How are we going to support all of them from a healthcare perspective? We already have a shortage of hundreds and thousands of different doctors all over the world. If you look at China, in China, less than 1 million of doctors have to serve a population of 1.5 billion people, and it's growing. In Indonesia, there is entire small hospitals with no doctors, only nurses. And this is where we in Israel can change. Israel has made an interesting decision more than 20 years ago to start collecting our data about healthcare. Millions of patients have been recorded, all the tests, all the diagnosis. Can we get the opinion of all of our doctors everywhere else in the world? And this is where AI comes in. Trying to get every person the best doctor in Israel is not possible. But artificial intelligence that tries to mimic the best doctor in Israel and actually making it accessible to every person in the East or in the West, this is exactly where we're going. Another interesting direction, and this is again a really interesting trend. Well, most of you probably know Moore's Law. Technology is getting smaller, cheaper. In pharma, we have exactly the opposite. It's called even Eroom Law. Developing a new drug takes twice the amount of time and twice the amount of money. And the reason is going through all this regulation is super hard, and all the low-hanging fruits have already been researched. How can we take all these experiments we're doing on ourselves on a daily basis and build different drugs or repurpose existing drugs? One of the works we've been doing with Maccabi healthcare system is trying to look at which drugs people are already taking for other diseases, and maybe it helped them in a completely different disease. We've been finding hundreds of different drugs that can be repurposed, and not only repurposed, they're even serving a better need. And I think this is where Israel has to stand out. We have the data, we have the experts, and as we said, we're already hungry. We just need to build it in a much larger scale. We've been talking this morning about the fact that, well, Israel is going to eventually build its marketing based on innovation, nothing else. And this is exactly where we have to be much bigger in our thought and thinking about how do we bring this tikkun olam that we all believe in, but actually making it happen, and specifically in healthcare.
You know, when we talk about AI, I guess you're always getting that question, well, that's great, but isn't it dangerous? It's great, but it's going to take away our jobs. It's great, but we can't live in that world. What do you say to those people?
So the first thing I say, I think almost everyone agrees, at the end of the day, the benefits far outweigh all the dangers. So that's number one. Number two, when we look back at history, and we heard some examples in the morning, every new technology, there is suspicion. So definitely that's number two. However, I think there is something different this time because we're calling this thing artificial intelligence. So it's challenging us. It's like something saying it's intelligent. And there is something to that, in a sense, because we expect this technology to make decisions for us. And therefore, I do say that it is important, in addition to developing the technology, to also have different people, the technologists, the regulators, the philosophers, all thinking about the implications of AI as we build it. And in particular, you know, I'm the technologist, So I can talk more about the technology. I can say that, you know, I'm proud to be in a company that's 107 years old. And, you know, one of our values for many years is equality and diversity. And in IBM Research, we're investing a lot in this whole area we call trusting AI. So we are thinking up front, how do you design for AI? How do you make it transparent? How can you have AI be explainable? So you can open the black box and understand what it's doing. But that should not stop us. I mean, we need to do these things. They're important. As we develop technology, talk about it, awareness is
Because
important.
this is something you all should see online. I know it was developed for 6 years in the lab in Haifa, the project debate, where, you know, there was an actual debate between a human and a computer, and I think the computer won, right?
It's an ongoing project, and yes, the computer won in one debate. The other one was a tie.
But you know, I saw it, and the first thing that came to the first thing that I thought about, wow, you know, I was thinking about the political atmosphere and, you know, combining it with social media and the fact that bots could take over it. How, I mean, when you're working on that in the lab, I guess you're excited with the technology and breaking through and whatever. How do you make sure that it doesn't fall in bad hands, in the wrong hands?
As I said, I think a lot of what worries our researchers and everybody is we keep thinking about what we could do from this technology. And everything we think about is optimistic, actually, in the sense, right? There are so many possibilities, and some of them can actually help with some of the things that worry us. So for us, debater technology is about discourse and is about making more informed decisions. It's about how you can really look objectively at data, and we all know the issues we have today with fake news and so much information we don't know if we can trust or not trust. So I think a lot of it is optimism and, you know, really believing in good and thinking about how we can deploy the technology to help, and to help in education is another example where we really think debater technology put in the hands of, you know, maybe underprivileged people that don't have the best debate clubs can help push up and, you know, help advance people. So I think there's just so many great possibilities, and I believe in
What was the one
humankind.
that won and what was the tie? What were the topics?
So one of the topics was on we should invest more in space exploration, and that was the one we won, actually. So the technology was arguing to invest more in technology. That may be
Because
that
you
may
need
have
enough
helped.
data to argue there, maybe.
Yeah, and the other one was about telemedicine, I believe. It was we should have, we shouldn't have telemedicine or trust telemedicine or something.
And that was the tie. Orna, you mentioned earlier that you took on 2 new roles. Could you elaborate a bit about those roles?
So one belongs in the Academy of Sciences, the Committee for Budgeting Universities, the Ministry of Defense R&D, and the Authority for Innovation and the Ministry of Science. So that is more as a infrastructure that leads into quantum computing and the quantum information. That is far-looking and relevant to what Amnon Shashua has said earlier, because it has an impact on enabling initially research. Those are areas that if you're saying that artificial intelligence is at its inception, this is way behind in terms of the percentage that we understand how useful this will become. So we have to do quite significant research in order to have machines that work, even though IBM, for example, and Intel have built such small models. We're very, very far from making it useful. It also requires funny temperatures, reminding me of the early mainframes that required special cooling. This requires 1 degree of Kelvin, which is much, much further physical environment requirements. But so that's one. The other one is something that relates to artificial intelligence and how do we expedite the development and make Israel keep a position. There is a very interesting paper by McKinsey that is looking at the economical impact of artificial intelligence, looking at the cost of putting the infrastructure, looking at the cost of on-the-job training for more people to be able to remain in the workforce, and looking at the benefit, economical benefit of becoming more efficient and more competitive, both on the land, on a country, on a firm, and on an individual basis. So we're looking at the component, the part of the component in my subcommittee for the infrastructure that is required. Now, many times in our past, we made public investments in the research and the development, which followed with far more investments from the private sector when the maturity of the technology and the know-how came about. And also, I would say one thing about our nature. We have, a border problem. We're a very small country, and we're not in a very friendly neighborhood. So I would say that the two areas that make us survive and have deterrence are equivalent to competitiveness in the economical private sector area. So there is a lot of shift of the dynamics between the two, and knowledge too. Like Gil was talking about education in academia, but he also talked about education that is made by our civil system, industries and the defense. So that's where we are, and it's really fascinating. I'm really lucky to, almost 70 and almost again doing something new.
I think that's what innovation is about. Kira, when you look at the world with all your knowledge, what is the next game changer in your eyes? What are you focused on?
So I think we discussed about the fact that healthcare is going to change a lot with artificial intelligence. We just need to think exactly how we change this. Well, we've been talking as well, one day we won't need doctors. I'm not a big believer in that. I think we're going to have doctors for quite some time. I think
so I should push my kids?
Oh, definitely.
I never push them. I say they should, I always say, find your passion, make it your profession, and you won't work a single day in your life.
So this is where maybe you don't need to push. Maybe you can have an AI that looks at your personality and kind of suggests what it can be. But this is exactly those hybrid systems that we're trying to build right now, trying to think how we build those systems that support the decisions of doctors, nurses, paramedics. I think even the next step, and this is where I'm mostly excited about, is how can I automate myself? So I look at myself as a researcher. What I do every day, I think about one hypothesis. I can test it for many years. If it works, wonderful. Maybe we'll get Nobel Prize, maybe we'll get a new drug, or nothing. Maybe it will fail. And of course, most of the time it fails. My question is, how can I take artificial intelligence to read all the articles ever published, look at all the data ever published, and look for correlations and understandings in order to identify hypotheses that have much higher probability of being real ones, so we can only do clinical trials on those. So we did a first attempt on this type of system that tries to combine causality knowledge that it learns from all medical articles published, tries to build some simulations of processes inside our body and information that comes from correlations inside data coming from the Israeli ecosystem. We tried to build an understanding of causality and understanding new hypotheses that were still not known. And we found amazing things. We found drugs that are causing Parkinson. We find other drugs that are actually causing hypertension to be reduced, and people can be treated in 3 months instead of 9 months. My question is, can we leverage this not only for healthcare, but for other fields as well? Can we take the innovative part of innovation and actually get AI to help us with this and build this hybrid model of making something new together with an AI?
What would you answer, Dr. Soffer?
Yes, of course.
We can debate on this.
Yeah, we can debate on it. But generally, Look, I agree language is the thing that defines human beings. So I do think we still need to crack that part in terms of, and a lot of, we need this for Kira's vision, for many other vision. But one of the things I really think why we need to crack language, and if we think about the future, it's the interaction between humans and machines. So I do believe AI at the end of the day will be about a partnership, but for that partnership to work, we need to communicate seamlessly. So I do believe that eventually we need to get to the point that we can actually talk to our AI. It needs to be able to explain itself. And natural language is part of it. I would say we also are very good at visual cues. So I think augmented reality has a big role to play. So I do think the future in terms of we're not going to sit and push those buttons on that stupid thing that sits in our pocket. It will be more verbal. It will be through augmented reality, through devices, and that's kind of, and talk to our AI that will help us in our every decision.
And it will happen we're at a point where we don't need to drive anymore, so, it's too late.
Lots of time.
I really want to finish quickly with one tip, one sentence tip that you give to the next student out there, the next innovator out there, the next entrepreneur out there that wants to be one day sitting in your position. What would be your tip?
We heard so many great tips already, so it's going to be hard to top them. I would say always continue to learn. Like you have to continue to learn new things. We have an example here, and just, never stop. Don't assume you know everything. Keep learning and learning and learning all the time.
Orna?
Keep solving problems.
Kira?
Remain modest, but dream bigger.
Remain modest and dream bigger. Thank you so much for your insight and sharing with us your thoughts about the future. Thank you, Orna and Kira.